You know, if you feel like the world is getting more tense, more anxious, you're definitely not alone. There's this growing sense that the ground beneath our feet is shifting. So we're going to dive into this because what you're feeling isn't just in your head. It's a new and very different reality of global conflict.
Now, that's not a line from a movie. That's a direct quote from a former CIA intelligence officer, and man, it gets right to the heart of what we're talking about today. The stakes are just incredibly high, but this new kind of war, it looks absolutely nothing like the ones we've all read about in our history books.
And this feeling, well, it's backed up by some pretty startling numbers. This one, 59. That is the number of countries involved in some kind of conflict since 2023. It's the highest number recorded in a single year since 1946. What this really shows is that the tension we're all feeling, it's measurable, it's real.
So, to make sense of all this, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the data behind this global anxiety, then we'll unpack the new rules of war, look at how major powers are fighting indirectly, re-examine the whole nuclear question, and finally explore the new main battlefield, your mind.
All right, let's start with a world on edge. This is where we connect that gut feeling we all have with the cold hard data that shows just how much global tensions have been ratcheting up.
Just look at this jump. World military spending shot up by about 10% year over year. That is the highest sum ever recorded. And get this, it marks a full decade of non-stop growth in military spending. Nations are arming up at a rate we've never seen before.
And it's not just us feeling this pressure. A recent survey of global strategists by the Atlantic Council found that 40% believe a world war is likely in the next decade. And even more sobering, 50% think nuclear weapons will actually be used in that same time frame. Yeah, the experts are really worried too.
So all this rising tension and massive spending, it brings us to our next section, the new rules of war. Because the central idea here is that our traditional picture of warfare, soldiers, tanks, battlefields, it's completely outdated. The very nature of conflict has fundamentally changed.
Which leads us to the big question, right? If it's not like the wars of the past, what in the world does this new kind of war actually look like?
Well, to understand what's new, we first need to define the old way of doing things. This is what's called kinetic warfare. It's a fancy term that just means the use of physical force and traditional weapons. This is the kind of conflict we're used to seeing in old newsreels and history documentaries.
In this slide, wow, it really just lays it all out. The weapons of the 20th century were tanks and bombs, but the weapons of the 21st century, they're server farms, algorithms, and trolls. We've literally moved from physical battlefields to cognitive ones, where the real goal is to shape what you think and destabilize societies from the inside out.
I mean, just think about what this really means. You don't need a huge army anymore. Technology has made it possible for a small group of people sitting in a room thousands of miles away to tear an entire society apart. It's become warfare on the cheap, and it completely blurs the lines of who's fighting who. The battlefield is literally borderless now.
This leads us right into another key tactic in modern conflict, fighting by proxy. This is how the big global powers can wage a kinetic war without ever putting their own troops on the front lines.
So what is a proxy war? Well, think of it like this. A powerful country finds a fire that's already burning somewhere else. They don't start it, but they pour gasoline on it. They provide the money, the training, and the weapons to one side, all to weaken their own enemies while keeping their own soldiers and equipment perfectly safe. It's really a three-step playbook. First, you find a conflict that's already going on. Second, you add fuel to that fire with your resources. And third, you achieve your own strategic goals without any of the direct risks of a full-scale war. It's all the geopolitical benefits of a conflict with pretty much none of the direct costs.
And let's be clear, this isn't some abstract theory. It is happening all over the world, right now. From Libya, Syria, and Yemen, to the conflicts involving Russia and Ukraine, and Israel and Iran, all of these are considered classic examples of modern proxy warfare.
Now we have to turn to the nuclear question. The threat of nuclear war, well, it isn't new, but the ways it could start have become terrifyingly modern.
This number is just stark. 9. That's how many countries in the world have nuclear weapons today. And while some might argue this creates a weird kind of stability, it also means there are 9 fingers on 9 very real buttons. And this is where that old, terrifying threat gets a brand new, modern twist. This quote from the UN Secretary General is absolutely chilling, because it points to a danger that didn't exist before.
In our age of deepfakes and viral misinformation, a fake video could genuinely be the spark that ignites a nuclear war.
And this table just shows how much the triggers have changed. Back in the Cold War, the fear was a faulty radar blip or a broken emergency hotline. Today, the danger comes from AI-generated deepfakes, lies spreading on social media, and algorithms that are specifically designed to amplify outrage. You could argue the potential for a catastrophic mistake is higher now than it's ever been.
And all of this brings us to our final section, the war for your mind. This is where all these different ideas, cognitive warfare, proxy fights, digital threats, this is where it all comes together.
Here it is, maybe the most important takeaway of all. The defining feature of conflict in our time isn't just the bomb anymore. It's the algorithm. It's the code that shapes what we see, what we believe, and ultimately how we feel about the world around us.
And this is the bottom line. These new wars are constant, they're invisible, they aren't fought over a specific piece of territory in the same old way. No, they are fought for control of the story, for control of the narrative itself. The battlefield is your social media feed. It's your news alerts. It's everywhere.
Which leaves us with this one final, really unsettling question. In a world where information is the main weapon and algorithms are the delivery system, who really controls the narrative? And what does that mean for the future of truth, conflict, and peace?